Torin. Torin's coming in. Welcome. You gotta turn your mic on.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that you can hear me. Is that all right?
Yeah, I know. I'm hearing you really well.
All right, cool. So do I need to do anything like on my screen, because I really
Do you have a
only
deck?
have, because no, I don't have a deck. And Ashley presented, she created something really simple. Oh, you see that? There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you don't have a deck, then we don't need anything. You can just go. But if
Okay,
she
so we
had
can
just like
rock with this.
a slide for you just to kind of to introduce you, we can put that up.
No, we can rock with whatever
Okay.
do you see that?
I don't see it. You want to
Um,
share your screen?
hold on, my thing is doing something over here. It's asking me to let you
Oh,
record. I'm sorry.
no,
So
you're
first
fine.
of all, everyone that's out there, I want to just say good afternoon or early evening.
Where do we find you today, Torin?
Man, let me tell you something. I have been, I started in Chicago with SRSC. I went to a client site here in Baltimore, virtually, of course. Um, I went to the Cayman Islands by way of you. Great introduction. We had a great conversation with Innovate Caribbean, and then now we're here.
Nice.
So I'm not going to waste time with this. I just want to talk,
Nope.
honestly.
You do
So
it.
I'm
You
not
do
even going to
you.
worry about it. Everyone knows who I am, and if you don't,
Yep.
you'll know by the end of my time with you. Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. What I want is for us to just kind of end the day on a human conversation. Um, I just really want to focus on where we are in this particular moment. And I start the day with, first and foremost being, well, actually, let me back up. I want to start with thanking William, Noel, Ryan, Ashley, the rest of the Recruiting Daily team for saying that it was all right for me to get outside of my swim lane and to have a different conversation. Everyone who knows me knows how adamant and unapologetic I am as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And to that end, I'm still that person, even in a different swim lane. And so what I told William when he asked me, let's talk about the subject of messaging and marketing and messaging. And I said, I absolutely want to do it because I want to do it from a layperson's way. I want to do it from the recipient's way. I don't want to do it as the practitioner. I certainly am not going to challenge Chloe, um, Allison, who might be on here, who does. I'm not going to challenge any of you all because I know that you know this space 10 times better than I do. But as a person, I wanted to just simply talk to how we make messaging. Tim just said a moment ago, he said candidates don't ask for much. They just want to know that we received their documentation and give them some degree of disposition. And so I promise you over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I want to just talk about how does that look from a messaging standpoint. I jumped in and I saw Adam Gordon's 3.86 trillion number. I'm like, first of all, how do you even have any device that has that many spaces in it and you're not sitting somewhere on NASA's campus? So whatever he's doing over there with Canada ID, love the work, love that he hit me with that number. We're not going to have anything that heavy tonight. I want to show you something. Here's an advertisement around slavery. Now it's got some yellow letters around it, but basically this is a real ad as it relates to slavery, 1865. Why am I bringing that up? I'm bringing it up because of where we are right now. Over the weekend, Senator Tom Cotton said that slavery was a necessary evil to make America a great country. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. When we turned the corner this year, January 1st, 2020, all of us had incredible ambition around what we wanted the year to be. Naturally, it fell in the repository of perhaps a New Year's resolution. It may have fallen in the repository or sandbox of a manifesto, a credo, a missive. We had a way that we wanted to kind of escalate through 2020. I know some of us set some high ambition. I mean, we really knew that this was just going to be our year, whether we had a questionable year in 2019, whether we got close to breaking some barriers and some milestones, and we know that we have the force behind us now to push us over. We just knew that this was going to be an incredible year. And then March 4th came. And I knew on March 4th, when South by Southwest canceled the conference, I said, everything for 2020 is out the window if we allow it to be. But for the short term, everything is out the window. So as we are dealing with COVID and the progression and how that messaging and how the virus has moved through various communities, how the data is being reported, then we run up in May and we experience George Floyd. And before George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. And before Breonna, Ahmaud Arbery. And we can keep going. But it was in that moment that social injustice was placed forefront for all of us to see. Like, had we not had COVID-19, the murder of George Floyd would have been just like, unfortunately, so many others that have happened. But it wasn't. And so over the weekend, when I think about where we are fighting through, coming through this pandemic, the social unrest, mothers, veterans, so many others in Portland being accosted by unarmed police. And what's amazing to me is they'll attack the moms and the veterans and those individuals in Portland, but they're not doing the same thing when those white men are storming the Capitol building. I believe it was in Michigan with artillery. Incredible. That's messaging. But when I thought about what Tom Cotton said over the weekend around slavery, I threw out the window, like, I would love to see him stand on the floor of the Senate, or I would love to see him stand in front of a camera in front of CNN, MSNBC, and I would love to see him say that the Holocaust was a necessary evil to achieve whatever. They would run his dumb ass out of they would run him. He wouldn't get to the parking lot if he said that. And so what I want in this afternoon is for us to just simply think about where we are. COVID, social unrest, politicians on both sides, because not any one of these sides has a monopoly on stupidity or racism. And then we got an election. We got people painfully hurting through job searches and what's life going to look like for them in Q3, Q4, and going into 2021. And so what I'm hoping is that in this moment, we won't think so much so only about what technology we're using, our content curation calendar, but that we will think about the people that we are absolutely trying to reach. That if in fact we care about inclusion and representation inside of our organizations, that we will genuinely think about the messaging, the medium, and the people that we are trying to reach. That we will be sensitive to the fact that we know sitting among us are individuals that have different beliefs, whether it be around attracting or chasing down people with different abilities or differently abled. We know people are sitting inside of our organizations that absolutely, have reservation around expressing an interest in Pride Month, June. And so for them, they were happy that they didn't have to do anything because they were in a distributed or agile scenario. And so it allowed them to sweep it up under the rug or back behind the curtain. We didn't have to address that. We know that we have those people among us. We know that we have people that are over the next 90 or so days up to the election and then immediately after, they're going to be influenced by what's happening. I just want us to be better people, because I don't understand what makes it hard for us to create messaging that really lands with the individuals that we want it to land with. And I am challenging the individuals who are operating in the space, because I know when I show up, I have to show up and I have to deliver. And so I want us to be able to deliver a more human experience. I want us to be willing to, like my dear friend, I wrote some notes down. James Ellis and I, we did a session last week, or July 21st, I believe it was, titled Love and Process. Anyone who knows me, you know that those are my two favorite and what I believe to be the two most powerful words in our lexicon. And so James said, Torin, we're going to title it Love and Process. And so some of the things that stood out inside of the data that we presented, that the platform, it absolutely matters when you are targeting certain groups of individuals. That platform may not resonate with one group over, so Twitter may not land well with Black engineers versus LGBTQ engineers. We may have to use and leverage a different platform. James Slide said that the geography may determine the messaging that we use, the content, the imagery. So I can drop a message in Portland right now with all that's going on, but it may not land the way that it would land in Chicago or Baltimore or down in Charlotte, North Carolina. We got the data. And so the question becomes, it's not so much so that we're missing anything. We're not missing anything. Sure, there's going to be some incredible people that are going to create some new technology, but we got the data. And so all I'm asking is that in this moment, that we all find a way for us to push the pause button a little bit differently. I don't want us to depress the pause button and do nothing. I want us to push the pause button and really reevaluate, how is it that we are constructing our messaging? How is it that we are going about populating our content curation calendar? How is it that we might leave some of those spaces open so that with speed, we can deliver a real-time message? We can plug in something that fits in this moment. Like, how many incredible messages could have gone out this afternoon for the funeral of Representative John Lewis and the sacrifice that he gave for the country? Somebody out there would have seen your message. Somebody who was watching that ceremony. And that somebody may say to themselves, you know what? I never knew anything about this organization, but that message hit my feed. I want to take a look at them. Bam. Can we leave some gaps so that we can be a bit more real time in going after the various people that we're trying to recruit? And for Pete's sake, can we just deliver messaging of trust? I think one of the best ads that I've seen since we've been in COVID, it was through Guinness beer. And if I remember the ad correctly, it was a couch, it was a 6-pack, and then down at the bottom it said something like be safe or be healthy or all you need or something like that. But it was literally a couch, a 6-pack, and whatever that wording was down at the bottom. Perfect. And I trusted the message. That's what we want. We just want you to be organizations. I don't want you to put up messages of slavery, but I do want you to put up honest messaging. I don't need all of the marketing language. I just really want to know what it's like to work inside of your organization. I'm willing to trust you if you tell me we have some challenges in our inclusion or representation. We know that people are hurting coming out of COVID and operating inside of this gig economy. Here are some of the things that we are trying to do to help support people that work in our company or communities in which we do business. Forget the job. We just want you to know who we are as an organization. We want you to trust us. That's what we want. I want to trust you. I want to trust your messaging. And when I talked to William several weeks back, I made the familiar statement of stop saying, what about Chicago? And what I meant by that is in so many of these conversations, you have people that will point to what's happening in Chicago in a way that is disingenuous and negative. It paints a light of Black people, those people. We got the same issues in cities all across the country. We're not trying to evaluate some cities' pain over another. We have the same issues wherever. So let's not focus on penalizing and lowering and miscategorizing individuals, operating with a precept that those people are not capable. Let's just tell truthful messaging. That's what I want to see us do for the remainder of 2020 and going forward. I want to know how much you care about us. And when I say us, I mean Black and brown people. I mean indigenous people. I mean people with disabilities that are woefully unemployed and capable. I mean individuals that are LGBTQ and coming through the pain of transgender people being murdered and accosted in cities all across this country. I want to see us as organizations do a far better job of being human. As Mitt Romney said, corporations are people too. I want to see us operate in that vein as people. And we can do all of that and still satisfy legal's requirements. We can tell the truth. And the truth requires that we have proximity. Proximity married to that passion in which we operate. I say oftentimes that a condition of progress is to allow those that are suffering to speak their truth. I want some truth in messaging. I don't need all of the buzzwords. I don't need all of the awards. I just want to know that I have somebody like Allison taking over global, head of global branding for Baxter, and she's going to be truthful in the work that she does. I want to know that I have somebody like Carrie Noon from CVS who's going to be truthful in the work that they do. I want to know that people like my dear friend Tracy Parsons is out there doing what she does because she is truthful about the work. I want James Ellis and Charlotte Marshall. That's what I want, people like that that are building truthful messaging. That's what I want. That's all that I want. And I submit to you, Tim, that's all that they want too.
Yeah, I figured this technology thing out, that would help, right?
It's all right.
Torin, thank you so much for the message. Totally appreciate it. And it's the perfect way to end today and what we've been trying to do and all the messaging that's been out there. When we think about all the people who have been displaced during COVID and what's going on right now with the social injustice movement, it's amazing to me. I find myself waking up every day, exhausted, but also energized in a way that I don't think I have because of everything we have in front of us to still do. So I think that's pretty cool.
I absolutely agree. I mean, again, I just think that we found ourselves in a moment where, we've been forced to recognize and look at things a little bit differently. And what I'm hoping is that as I shared at SRSC yesterday morning, I asked a question. And the question that I asked was, if I place in front of you, we will never forget, what does that remind you of? And overwhelmingly, it reminds you of what?
We will never forget.
Yep. Reminds you of what?
I, I
9/11,
yeah,
9/11.
yeah.
Overwhelmingly, that phrase is associated with 9/11. And so what I said to them yesterday, and I'm saying today, is I don't want us to forget this moment that we're in. I firmly believe that most people that are on this webinar right now, most people inside of our organizations, yes, I highlighted slavery. I talked about Tim Cotton. I did. I know that that's not the largesse of people. I get that. The challenge is that we are at this moment, Tim, because we have allowed so many injustices to happen and we've moved through them and over them in silence. We've not said anything. We've not spoken up. We've not protested either in our organization or through our vocal action or through our social media feeds. We've just allowed these injustices to roll in and out of our life silent, and the burden has been on the group of people that have been accosted and then some of those allies. My signature presentation for 2020 was less allyship, more action. Because we're in a virtual capacity, I'm like, I'm not delivering it until I hit a stage because it's straight fire. So I'm not doing it until I'm live again. And if that means 2022, then that's when you'll get it. But my point is, we have allowed so much injustice to happen in silence. And so I'm hoping that in this moment right now, we will find a connection the way that we found a connection September 11, 2001. That we will not forget why we are here, how we got here, the impact of everything that's happening, and that we don't want to have this conversation again. I don't
So,
ever want to see another person experience what they've had to experience over the last, 6, 7, 8. I done lost track now since March. I don't want
yeah.
people to have to go through this. I know we will, but I don't want us to have to go through this. And some of this, Tim, is avoidable. And part of that avoidance requires that we show and speak up.
So when we think about all these organizations that have come out over the last probably what 5 to 8 years, especially on the tech scene, and given us the metrics of the dynamics of their organization when it comes to D&I. You're a recruitment strategy expert. We saw Nike just make a change, right? Because stuff wasn't happening. Do you foresee this being a tipping point where we'll finally start to see actual real change in the hiring of people of color in organizations? Because giving the data public, making the data public, it didn't make them change. I mean, for 5 years, they would put their data out there, and yet the next year it was exactly the same, and nothing happened. So,
Yeah,
is this the tipping point?
I hope it is. Six of me, half of me says yes, it is for those organizations that already have some degree of momentum. The other half of me says, like Jay-Z, you're going to give me heaven, I'm going to raise hell.
Yeah.
So either way, I'm not bringing off my pressure. I'm applying pressure to the organizations and the clients and the executives that I coach, organizations that I'm working with. I'm going to apply even more pressure because we are at that moment where we really can tip forward. And in tipping forward, Tim, that doesn't mean that the diversity reports are going to look any different. It's not. And I keep telling people, stop trying to chase a different number on your diversity report. Chase what your best is. Chase what your better is. Let's chase that. What I've talked about here is not going to find the next new shiny tool. It'll come, but how do we do a better job of delivering that messaging, connecting with that candidate that we want to, that prospect that we're looking for, ultimately that employee that we hire? How do we do a better job of re-enrolling that individual through the onboarding process, not just for 90 days, but for 12 to 18 months? How do we keep getting them messaging? We don't want the messaging to stop when they get at their desk and get their badge. How do we continue to message with them? How do we do that? That's the organization that I want. So the answer for me is yes, I believe that we are at the precipice of a tipping point, but it won't happen if we don't push them, and we got to
Well,
push them.
and I think it's a combination of buy and build. Like I think the reason we've failed so mightily at this is we're unwilling to go out and build the kind of talent that we actually want and invest there
I
versus
agree.
going, oh well, I mean the classic example, right, except for the tech companies are like, oh well, we just can't find enough women software engineers or black software engineers or whatever it might be. And you're like, you've had a decade and endless amounts of billions of dollars to be able to invest to build those people if that's what you wanted.
Absolutely. And let's add to that, that Black women are the most degreed group of people in the country.
Per capita. Yeah.
So if in fact we've not we, let me be specific. If in fact they have done what we say is supposed to be done, go to school, get a degree, get it, if they've done that, then why are we not? And that's where the equity comes in. And so what I say is if in fact you feel like people graduating, and historically it's been proven that many of the undergraduates are not prepared to walk into whatever workplace it is. Prepared You project, Bentley University did the Prepared You project in 2014. And if you look at that report from 2014, I submit to you not much has changed now as it relates to an undergraduate then and an undergraduate 6 years later. They're not ready. So if they're not ready, and that's broadly, then we got to do something a little bit differently. And so that's where the equity comes in. You got to spend a little time, spend some time developing the talent that you want. We can't just buy and poach talent. We got to invest and really build the talent and we can do that, Tim. We can do
Yeah.
that. So I just think
Yeah.
it's really about will, as I say often, over skill.
Yeah. No, you're right. All right. Awesome. Well, that ends our day. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Torin for closing. It's been awesome. Again, I've seen you speak 100 times, and I would wait in line to see you and pay money to see you speak 100 more. So thank you so much for coming on. Totally appreciate that. And I'm sure we'll catch up soon.